All right, so let's now take a second to go over an example of a fatigue type question and problem that we can get from fatigue data. And so here I'm giving you the SN curve for some materials, and I actually already showed you part of this. But what I want you to think about is, and the same as always, go to the quiz and answer this question and come back and we'll work it together. But let me read the prompt to you first, and then you can pause the video. But if we have a cast iron part, so think of some part that we have that's made out of cast iron, and the design of it is we want it to be able to withstand 10 to the 7 load cycles. Then what is the maximum stress that we can use for that application? And so that's the maximum stress. And then repeat the same question with 2014 aluminum alloy. And so answer that and then come back and we will discuss the solution. All right, so the way that we're going to read this, and let me just go back for a second. The way we're going to read this question is it's giving us a cycle to failure, right? So it has to be at least 10 to the 7. And so that would be, so here's our 10 to the 7, right? So we either want it to be withstand that or greater. And so that's kind of our line here. And so we want to know what the maximum stress is. So then we find the curve for cast iron. And so that's the yellow one here. So we see that this is the value here. And so if we follow that over, it's maybe 220, 225 megapascals, right? So the maximum stress we can use to get that number of cycles is 220 or 225 megapascals, however close you can get to that value. That will be the maximum stress. And for the 2014, if we go and find that, so that's the red curve here, and we see that it's right here. And for that one, it's maybe closer to 175 over here. And so that's what I've just kind of drawn here with these lines to show that the stress amplitude can be about 220 megapascals for the cast iron and about 175 for the aluminum alloy. And again, just to kind of compare these two, the reason it can do that is because the reason the ductile cast iron is actually higher is because the ductile cast iron has that fatigue limit, and so it kind of levels off here at about 10 to the 6 cycles, and so that has the slightly higher stress amplitude of the two, whereas the 2014 aluminum alloy continually decreases. All right, so that's the kind of data that you can think about with fatigue testing is your design apparatus is, your design part is under some cyclic loading. So how many cycles is required? And then you have to think about the stress that it can withstand or vice versa. If you want to put this amount of stress on it, how many cycles can it withstand? So it might have to be something that's replaced. So those are the kind of questions that come up with fatigue data.